Hello, everyone. I'm Sharon Jaddernack, the Petersburg Symphony Orchestra's Executive Director. Here with me today is Ulysses Kirksey, Music Director and Conductor of the Petersburg Symphony Orchestra. Maestro Kirksey has held this position since 1989 for over 30 years. Today, we're going to focus on several string instruments that Ulysses plays in addition to the cello. But first, tell us about your musical training, Ulysses.
Well, great. And thank you, Sharon. It's always a pleasure. Well, I think it all sparked when I was in elementary school. And one day, our fifth grade teacher announced that we would be boarding a bus, a school bus, to take us to a Richmond Symphony concert downtown at what is now the Altria Theater. And so I was so excited. It was one of the most exciting days of my life. There were buses everywhere, hundreds of school children, and we all went inside the theater. And as we got into the concert hall, I could hear the musicians of the orchestra warming up. And I thought, wow, that sounds like music itself. I thought it was so beautiful, this cacophony of sounds coming from the orchestra. And then we were ushered to our seats. And then the house lights went down. A person came out on the stage with a violin, the concertmaster, and tuned the orchestra. And I thought the tuning was exciting even. To me, that was like music. I was excited about everything. And then a gentleman walked out on stage dressed in a really nice suit. He had a small white stick in his hand, and he addressed the audience, thanked everyone for being there, told us a little bit about the first piece, and then turned around and started to conduct and make music. I think within 5 minutes, I knew that this was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. That sparked it. And I thought, I've got to take up an instrument, and an orchestral instrument, and perfect it, try to get as good as I could, and to try to play in some orchestras, and to be the best cello player that I could be, but also the best orchestral musician that I could be. So when I got to high school, I joined the Richmond Youth Symphony Orchestra, and the conductor of the Richmond Symphony, who was the founder of the Richmond Symphony, Dr. Edgar Schenkman, was conductor of the youth orchestra. And it was amazing to play under just such a wonderful maestro. I mean, he taught us a lot about orchestral etiquette, what's expected of us, the tuning process, everything that's involved in orchestra. And I tried to learn as much as I could. And then looking back on it now, he wasn't only training future orchestral musicians, he was also, if anybody was interested in really listening, paying attention, he was also training future conductors. So because he explained everything that he did and the reasons why on the podium. He was like a natural teacher. So that was my first real orchestral experience, playing real music, I call it, the same music that the Richmond Symphony played. We played, the same music. So it was difficult, but I learned how to swim. I jumped into the deep end of the pool, and before I knew it, I was playing right along with everybody else. So that was gratifying. And then after high school, I spent a year at VCU, played in the orchestra there. But then I found out that I was the only string major in the entire music department. Not the only cello major, I was the only string major.
Wow.
In the entire music department at that time. I thought I need more of a challenge. I need to be around people who are doing what I do. So I had an aunt who lived in Brooklyn, in a beautiful house, a beautiful neighborhood in Brooklyn. I think I was her favorite nephew. She loved the cello. And so I called her one day and I said, Aunt Ankie, we called her Anchor. Her name was Ann, we called her Ankie. Aunt Ankie, if I audition for Manhattan School and get in, can I come to live with you for maybe a year or two until I get on my feet? Without hesitation, she said, by all means. And so I auditioned for Manhattan School, got in, and she was so happy to have me there. I would play the cello for her from time to time. And then of course, Manhattan School is one of the finest music conservatories in the world. What a joy to have all these performance opportunities there. They had a lot of chamber music opportunities. I was coached by some of the greatest legendary concert artists who were chamber musicians. Lillian Fuchs, who was a violist, legendary violist.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to play in a string quartet that was coached by her. And then also Arthur Balsam, brilliant concert pianist back then. And I played in a piano trio that was coached by him. So even though he spent a lot of time with the piano, he also talked about the strings and their relationship in a piano trio with the piano, how they interact and what's expected of us. And so that was the best training. And then, of course, there were the orchestras, not just full orchestra, but also chamber orchestra. And then we also had an opera orchestra.
Oh, okay.
Manhattan School has always been known for its opera department. Mm-hmm. Those opera productions they put on are so almost like the smaller version of the Metropolitan Opera. Uh-huh. And we got write-ups in the New York Times, and Juilliard didn't get write-ups for their operas. So that was something I was so proud of, because our opera department was better than Juilliard. So I got to play an opera orchestra quite a few times. And then I even played in the opera orchestra when we did the world premiere of a new opera by a German composer. His name was Hans Werner Henze. Mm-hmm. And the name of the opera was Boulevard Solitude. It received its world premiere at the Manhattan School of Music, fully staged production. And I was in the orchestra. And the composer was there. I mean, what an education that is. It was just fabulous.
That sounds like a great experience.
Well, it was, the performance opportunities were unbelievable. Wow. And then I enrolled in a couple of conducting classes, not with the intention of thinking about conducting as a career, but I just wanted to better myself as an orchestra musician. And so I thought that it would be good to learn what's going on the other side of the podium, on the conductor side. What goes through a conductor's mind, when he's preparing an orchestra for a performance? What's involved there? And I thought it would make me a better orchestra musician, because to consider a career as a conductor, I thought it doesn't make sense, because there are of course no guarantees on anything, but what is the chance that you'll land a conducting position someday? Right. So I just wanted to be an orchestral musician, and but it was discovered that I also had a talent for conducting. Uh-huh. And some of the conducting teachers said that I should maybe even pursue it and consider it, because they said that I had a natural ability and so on. When I completed my undergrad, I decided to enroll in graduate school, and a couple of the conductors were trying to convince me to change my major to conducting. Mm-hmm. And then I talked to a faculty advisor, and he advised against it, because he said I would stand a much better chance of landing a job in a symphony orchestra somewhere rather than waiting around for a conducting position to come up, which made a lot of sense to me. And he said, since I've invested so much time, money, energy into my cello studies, just continue with the cello, which I did. Mm-hmm. So, but I was glad to have taken the conducting classes, because it did prepare me down the road. After college, I got out into the freelance world. Mm-hmm. And then I co-founded a chamber orchestra in New York called the String Reunion. Mm-hmm. And we concentrated on music by composers of color. Mm-hmm. And we had several composers there in New York writing premieres for us. And so I was chosen to be the conductor of the group, because everybody in the group, some of them were former classmates at Manhattan School. They knew that I had studied conducting. So I was the designated conductor. And there came a conducting opportunity out of nowhere, and so I got some experience under the belt conducting that group. And then I was invited out to Pennsylvania to do guest conducting. And then, it just sort of went on from there.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Now you've told me you play a couple other instruments beside the cello. One of them is the Baroque cello, and another is the viola da gamba. Tell us a little bit about those instruments, because they are not modern instruments, correct?
Well, that's right. You have to make the distinction between what is a modern cello and what is a Baroque cello. Now, we were all trained in the modern style of playing, we call it, because this is something that started in the Romantic period. A lot of people might not be aware of this, but all the string family instruments, violins, violas, cellos, and double basses, had their necks changed in the 19th century. They had to do this because the old Baroque style of playing had gone out, and they needed instruments with more power to keep up with the sound of the modern piano that was being developed. But also promoters were building these big concert halls, you know, to charge people to come in a concert, and they needed louder instruments to, you know, fill the sound of the hall. You know, back in the Baroque period, the flute was made of wood. Okay. It was a much quieter instrument. But then in the 19th century, the late 19th century, they started to make it of metal, and it became a louder instrument. And then they increased the range of it. So all those great Stradivari instruments, you know, you hear about the great Stradivarius violins, almost none of them had their original necks. Okay. That they had back in the Baroque period. Okay. So those necks were changed in the 19th and 20th century. And that goes for especially all the Italian instruments because they were in such demand. Wow. Great instrument. So the body is the same, but on the Baroque instrument, the neck is shorter and a little bit straighter to the body. And so it, you get the fingerboard height, the bridge height by ramping the fingerboard some more to give some height. But what they did with the modern neck was they made it longer, a little bit thinner, and tilted it back to give even more bridge height, and that gave more volume. You also have to take into account that the Baroque stringed instruments used gut strings, sheep intestine or twisted lamb intestine. And I have a friend, he plays the viola da gamba, he uses ram intestine. And he has a friend who has a farm that has rams on it, and they have there's an old ram there that's about to die, and he has first dibs on this ram.
We'll be getting some new strings.
So he could get some strings from it, because this guy is also a string maker. And so I thought, that sounds like something biblical, you know, for the ram to die to get string. But yeah, and so with the gut strings, and then the bows were different in the Baroque period. The bows were curved outward, like a bow that one would use to shoot arrows. Yeah, so that's why they call it a bow, because it actually looked like a bow that shoots like arrows. Yeah, and so in the 19th century, they made the stick a little bit longer and slimmer and curved it more inward. And that gave a little more volume. So it's all about volume, and extending the range. And so when I was studying the cello at Manhattan, I thought, gosh, it seems so limited, because all we had was romantic repertoire that everybody played. And I thought, there's got to be something, you know, a history to my instrument. And when I discovered something about the Baroque cello and all the great composers who were writing solos for the cello that we never heard of, in the Baroque, names you never heard of really wonderful composers for the cello, that's when my love for the instrument was re-sparked. So I started playing some Baroque cello in Colonial Williamsburg. Colonial Williamsburg Foundation invited me to do Governor's Palace series. Now the viola da gamba was an instrument that came about a little bit before the Baroque cello. It was late Renaissance and into the early Baroque. But it was the main instrument in France, even up until the mid 18th century, because they didn't like anything Italian in France. You know, the French thought they were better than everybody else. So, so the violin was considered like a street instrument. You know, it was something that just beggars and fiddlers played. And the viola da gamba was considered the instrument of the upper class. Right. So the viola da gamba has 6 strings. The violin family has 4 strings generally. And the viola da gamba family is a family. There are small ones that play high parts just like violin, called treble viols. Then you have a tenor viol, a little bit bigger. And then the bass viol or viola da gamba is the one that I play, because it's a lot like the cello. In fact, it shares 2 strings in common with the cello. So that's why it was kind of easy to learn, because you've got these strings that are in common with the cello strings. And the bow is held underhanded rather than the overhand grip, just like violin family. So those are the big differences.
So those three instruments are related to each other. They're different, but they're related.
Yes,
Good.
exactly. Yes, they
Okay.
are. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Ulysses. We're going to probably do another interview another day and talk about
Most
some other
certainly.
musical items. But you've just given us a little bit of background today and about what you've played and how you were educated. And thank you very much.
It's all my pleasure. Thank you.
Good, good. So I want to say goodbye to everybody and take care. And we look forward to seeing you in person at a future concert. And just a reminder that we will be having a concert with 3 smaller ensembles on Sunday, May 16th at 4 p.m. in Hopewell at the Beacon Theater. And we'll be posting more details to the PSO website and social media in April. Thank you so much, Ulysses, and goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.